Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. In today's video, we are going to be doing a more fun topic that we have done for 3 shows previously, 5Ds, Vrains, and Arc 5. Those 3 videos will all be linked down below in the description, and that is the top 10 dream duels, or the top 10 duels that we wish we saw this time for the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. So the requirements to be eligible for this list: it has to be 2 characters that never dueled in a one-on-one setting, and it has to be characters that appeared in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. This is definitely way more of a creative list, so, don't take it too seriously. This is a pretty fun topic, and I'd love to see some of your dream matchups that you never got to see down below in the description. And so, let's just jump right into it. I hope you guys enjoy. Before we move on to the list, I do want to thank today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. I'm sure every single one of you watching this video has heard of Raid Shadow Legends, and let me be the first to tell you, if you haven't heard already, that this game is an absolute blast to play. Not only do you have thousands of gorgeous, beautiful champions to select from, and you can curate and create your team based on different champion abilities, but the battle system is very fun and very easy to get used to, especially if you are a brand new player like I am. Raid recently released its biggest ever update, the Doom Tower. It's a giant tower with 120 floors, a bunch of secret challenge rooms, and 12 seriously badass bosses to take on, and I have been having a blast with it so far. It's a huge challenge, especially for someone that is a newer player, but I am having a lot of fun trying to beat it. So if you want to get a huge head start in Raid, all you have to do is hit the link in the description and get your free Spirit Champion, 50,000 silver, 50 gems, 5 mystery shards, 1 day XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 clan boss key as soon as you get in-game. You will find your extra rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. You guys always show me incredible support, and if you could help me reach my goal of 250 installs by downloading this game, that would be absolutely incredible. The link is right in the description, so please do not hesitate and get Raid Shadow Legends. Kicking off this list is Asuka versus Blair. Legitimately the only 2 girl duelists that we saw in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX of any sort of relevance. I think it would have been cool to see these 2 square off, maybe later in the show. I know we got a tag duel where they kind of dueled with each other, and there was always a little bit of rivalry and tension between the 2 of these characters because of their interest in Judai as a potential love interest. And I think it would have been really cool if maybe in that final season, Blair got promoted to Obelisk Blue, and her and Asuka had a duel to see who was the queen of the obelisks. I think it could have been a really good duel. I think it could have been ultimately a good win for Asuka. And these 2 being the only girl duelists in GX, I think it would have been cool to see them square off, and I think it would have been a good balance between lightheartedness and comedy that would have been really interesting to see in that final season. We kind of got a glimpse of it in the tag duel, and I just think this would have been a really fun duel had it happened. Coming up next is Johann versus Sho, or Jesse versus Cyrus in the English dub. So this is a pretty interesting concept here. Very early on in GX, really the entire first half of the show, Sho clearly became the best friend of Judai. He was the Joey Wheeler best friend character who really struggled with self-confidence, and Judai helped him out massively. Well, a character that came into the mix in Season 3 that became incredibly close with Judai was Johann, was Jesse Anderson, and I think it would have been really interesting to see almost like a former best friend versus a current best friend duel had these 2 actually squared off. Now, I would guess that Johann probably would get the win. The best time for this duel to happen is probably some part early in Season 3, even before Viper's plan gets revealed. And seeing these 2 best friend characters, although best friend characters at different points in the story, would have been really interesting to see. You could have had an angle where maybe Sho was jealous of the friendship that was blooming between Judai and Johann, which I think was pretty relevant in Season 3. I think that was pretty much what was happening. And so I'm kind of surprised that these 2, especially early on, never ended up dueling. But that comes in at number 9 on this list. Number 8 is Judai versus a character that I'm sure everyone hates just as much as I do, Aman Garam, or Adrian Gecko in the English dub. And I'm sure a few of you are saying, why Judai versus Aman? So the reason I have this duel on this list is because it is nearly impossible to think of characters that Judai never dueled. This guy, at so many different points in the series, just carried GX on his shoulders. I don't know how he wasn't collapsing from exhaustion due to the pressure that was on him by Season 3 and Season 4 from just carrying the show the first 2 seasons. The amount of duels that this guy had was incredible, and if you really try and think of characters that he never dueled against, you're going to be thinking for a very long time, and that list is ultimately going to be very short. But a character he never dueled against was Aman, which is kind of surprising. I really thought that these two were going to duel right after Aman defeated and ultimately killed Eddo due to summoning Exodia. I think Judai would have been an interesting choice to stop him. I don't mind the decision for Yubel and Johann to be the one that stopped Aman instead, but I'm kind of surprised that not only did Judai not duel Aman, considering he dueled every single character in the show, but Aman was also a villain, albeit a minor one, in Season 3, so it would have made a decent amount of sense. It actually would have made a lot of sense logically for your protagonist to duel and ultimately defeat Aman, and I hated Aman. And with how much we all hate Aman, I think it would have been cool to see Judai duel him, because we would have been able to more easily root for Judai and against Aman. It's like when he was dueling against Yubel and Jesse, you're like, do I really want to root against Aman here? We know the kind of threat that Yubel possesses, which made that duel very interesting in its own right. But I think seeing Judai take on Aman at some point would have been interesting. It's the only character he legitimately just never faced. Coming in 7th is Monjome versus Kaiser, for the sole purpose of this duel ideally being what we got in the manga. These two did duel in the manga. Of course, Monjome was a much more serious, in my opinion, much more likable character in the manga. And when these two dueled, Kaiser literally obliterated Monjome, and I think it would have been so funny if at any point in the show these two did end up dueling and Kaiser literally wipes the floor with him in like 5 minutes. I think that would have just been hilarious, and if they recreated what they did in the manga for the anime, of course the manga came after the anime concluded, I would have loved to see this duel play out. I think it would have been hilarious, and it would have just further solidified how deadly of a character Kaiser actually was. Coming in 6th is Johann versus Eddo. So this is just a deck versus deck matchup that I think would have been really cool to see. I'm not sure where this would be in the story. Maybe around the time that Eddo dueled Monjome, when they were doing kind of their Season 4 farewell duels for a lot of the main cast, although Eddo and Johann were not really part of that main Season 1 crew. But to see Crystal Beasts versus D Heroes, I think would have been a really awesome matchup. Two of the more iconic and most beloved decks from the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, and from a character square-off perspective, can't really add too much more to that. I think it would have been a really good duel between two very iconic decks and two really respectable duelists. Coming in 5th is a duel that I think would have made a lot of sense in Season 3 at some point, and that is Sho versus Supreme Kinghao. So when Judai finally gets absorbed by the darkness, Sho is one of the only characters that actually does not get absorbed and sacrificed to the stars, if you will, to create Supreme Kinghao and the Supreme King of Season 3, Judai's inner darkness. Sho is present, he's around, yet he never challenges Hao to a duel. Instead, we get Jim Crocodile Cook and O'Brien as the ones who end up challenging, and O'Brien ultimately defeating Hao and reverting Judai back to his normal form. I think this would have been a massive opportunity for him to step up and step into the role of a respectable character from a dueling perspective. I don't know. Sho was always a character that I never really vibed with that well, and I never really connected with. To see him kind of step out of the shadow and challenge this version of Judai, a person that he considered throughout the show to be his big brother, his best friend, I think would have made a lot of sense. And even if he lost, which he probably would have, it would have garnished a lot of respect for Sho in my eyes, and for probably a lot of people as well. Coming in 4th is Asuka versus Kaiser, Ryo Marufuji. I'm very surprised we did not get this duel. When these two were talking in the very first episode of GX, it was very well established early on that not only did these two have a great respect for each other, but they had a great respect from a lot of their peers, because Asuka was the queen of the Obelisk Blues, and Hell Kaiser was legitimately the best duelist on campus. So I'm surprised you did not have essentially the king of the Obelisk Blues and the queen of the Obelisk Blues duel at any point in the show. Even when Ryo goes off the deep end in Season 2 and ultimately becomes Hell Kaiser, I'm surprised Asuka did not try and snap him out of it, given the fact that they were friends. I think this is a duel that just makes a lot of sense, and it would have been a really cool duel to see. Coming in third is Truman versus Jim Cook. It is so obvious how much I like Jim Cook and how badly I want to incorporate him in any sort of Season 4 storyline. Now, I do believe there were behind-the-scenes decisions, maybe with his voice actor. I've actually done a whole video on it as to why Jim Cook is the only character in Season 3, of course, outside of Aman, who died, who did not return in Season 4. He didn't even show up to the graduation party with O'Brien and Johann, which is crazy to me given the role that he had in the story in the previous season. If Truman versus Jim Cook was even half as good as Truman versus O'Brien was, I would be so down for this duel. We could learn so much about Jim Cook's past. Of course, it would probably be in a very traumatic, awful way, but that Truman-O'Brien duel made me like and appreciate and respect O'Brien so much more. So Truman versus Jim Cook would have been a really cool duel to see in Season 4, probably with some really twisted backstory, and probably with a Truman win. Coming in second is Judai versus Hao. So now we're thinking a little outside the box here, and I know a lot of you are going to say, could that have even happened? Could Judai have dueled his inner darkness? Could he have dueled the Supreme King? And I will give you this. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX had a duel where Judai took on a monkey, and they had a duel where Jinzo, an evil spirit, was revived, and Judai had to defeat him in some sort of electrical field. So yes, this duel absolutely logically could have happened from any Yu-Gi-Oh standards, honestly. We know Judai, when Hao was possessing him, was within his inner darkness. We've seen scenes where he's monologuing and gets absorbed by himself, and I think having him duel Supreme King and having the Supreme King maybe even wipe the floor with him to solidify the grasp that the darkness has on him would have been really cool to see. So yes, this one's a little outside of the box. Maybe it doesn't even make logical sense, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, if any Yu-Gi-Oh!, could have absolutely pulled it off. And to further solidify the threat and the power and the grip that depression and darkness and ultimately the Supreme King has on him, this would have been a really good duel to see, and it would have given Judai a very late loss in the story. Coming in first, it's on the thumbnail, you probably guessed it, is Judai versus Pegasus. Come on. This duel would have been absolutely insane, and yes, because of the requirements or the eligibility factors of this topic, this duel is absolutely fair play. Pegasus was not only in GX, but he also dueled. He took on Crowler and Bonaparte in a 2-on-1, and knowing that Pegasus is the creator of the game and has such a love for the cards and has such a respect for duelists in GX, of course, you know, maybe not early Pegasus, but he has such a love for the game. He's like an adult version of what Judai is going to be. Two characters that absolutely love Yu-Gi-Oh!, that at this point in their lives respect the game so much. This would have been an amazing duel to see. Honestly, this could have been a ceremonial duel. That's, I think, how impactful and iconic it could have been. And it really is a shame that we never got to see this duel, knowing that Pegasus was not only around in GX, but an active participant of a lot of things that was going on in that show. So it's a shame that the main protag and one of the more beloved, iconic villains of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters never ended up dueling. I would imagine that this would be about a 2-3-parter, with Judai ultimately getting the win, but this would have been an amazing duel to have happen, maybe even right before Judai and Yami Yugi take part in their actual ceremonial duel. Pegasus could have shown up to the graduation. They could have dueled there for an episode or two. I don't know. I think it would have been a really amazing and iconic duel, and that for me is the #1 duel that I would have loved to see in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know all your thoughts on this list, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if there were any duels I did not mention that we never saw throughout this show that you would have liked to see, and let me know if there's any duels I did mention that you would put a bit higher than I did. Of course, the rankings here are very arbitrary. This is more just a 10 duels. You know, I rank them based on personal preference, but this is just such a creative topic that there's a lot of moving parts, and so I just hope you enjoy. Definitely a more creative style video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video, and a special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, Jarrett Buller, and Aura Dragon, and to my Diamond tier patrons Jesse Wood, Latrell Smith, and Anime Kaput, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons XZ's Lover 104, Pegasus Seiya, and Stella Sky. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, and thank you to everyone who is a YouTube channel member. I would not be able to do this without all of you. I will talk to you down below. Thank you again so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Best.